want to begin day 2 of our series, The Forbidden Zone, investing in Iran. One of the first things that happened to us on our trip to Iran was meeting a Brit and a group of Germans who told us they were coming to pitch an architecture project. So there are companies right now doing business with Iran. And as you saw yesterday, American brands were everywhere. We saw lots of them, from Levi's to Tommy Hilfiger to Gap, all unauthorized. Our hotel actually offered Camaros and Challengers for rent. GM and Chrysler tell us they are not authorized and they don't do business formally in Iran at all. But some American companies are in Iran for real. A forbidden flag for most U.S. companies, too tantalizing for some to resist, including an under-the-radar but powerful energy firm named Transammonia. Headquartered in New York, Transammonia trades energy and ships, as the name indicates, ammonia. Frank Mitch covers the chemical industry for Wall Street investment firm BB&T.
Shipping ammonia is very complex. You need specialized vessels in order to do so. It's very costly to do it. Around the world, the largest privately held company shipping ammonia is Transammonia.
You can't grow corn or soybean without ammonia, never mind make Windex or explosives. Ammonia is an ingredient in 95% of the roadside bombs in Afghanistan. Ammonia is made from natural gas, and Iran, home to the world's second largest natural gas reserves, wants to make a lot of it. The Iranian government plans to increase ammonia production by nearly 60% in the next 5 years. We filmed this ammonia ship, the Tobolsk, delivering Transammonia cargo to India this fall, after the industry tracker Ferticon noted it loaded up at Iran's BIC, the Bandar Imam Khomeini petrochemical complex. So how does this happen? The first stop to doing business in Iran is here at the U.S. Department of the Treasury. U.S. companies apply for a special license. For example, NBC News has one to operate our bureau in Tehran. A staff of over 160 people at Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control makes the decisions on who gets a license. Last year, the office approved more than 300 companies to operate in Iran. Kenneth Katzman of the Congressional Research Service is the #1 expert in America on Iranian sanctions.
Do you think a company could get a license to transport ammonia?
I highly doubt it, because Iran is trying to build up ammonia as a big export sector. And U.S. policy is to weaken the Iranian economy, not to help the Iranian economy.
Transammonia told us they've never applied for a license. Instead, this Transammonia subsidiary in Switzerland, 100% owned by Transammonia in the United States, does business in Iran. In an email, the company's general counsel told us that no money from Iran comes to Transammonia in the United States, and that neither Transammonia Inc. nor any of its U.S. subsidiaries transacts any business with Iran. From time to time, a foreign corporation that is an indirect subsidiary of Transammonia Inc. has purchased anhydrous ammonia and sulfur produced in Iran for resale to customers outside the U.S. Foreign subsidiaries may be allowed, but experts say they aren't business as usual anymore.
Foreign subsidiaries can trade with Iran. It's not banned under U.S. trade regulations. But still, a lot of those are pulling out of the Iranian market, as are a broad range of foreign companies.
After all, if the point is to stop American companies from doing business in Iran, should their subsidiaries be doing it?
Iran's nuclear program is a fundamental threat to the United States.
Howard Berman is the chairman of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs.
If it's permissible activity, the company should seek a license and do it the right way. I get suspicious of activity where they avoid going for the license.
Beyond business and politics, in the case of Transammonia, there's a unique personal angle.
Words
from a Holocaust denier that likely hit home to Transammonia founder and CEO Ronald Stanton. Stanton was born in Wiesbaden, Germany in 1928. The Holocaust took a toll on his family. According to the newspaper Jewish Week, his grandparents committed suicide to avoid going to a concentration camp. Stanton and his mother escaped Hitler's Nazi regime, coming to New York when he was 9 years old. He considered becoming a rabbi at this Manhattan synagogue, but opted for business, making money and then giving it away. Last year, he was one of the top 20 donors in America, giving away more than Oprah. His main cause, Jewish education. Recent gifts included $100 million to the Orthodox Yeshiva University, the single biggest gift to Jewish education in American history. The situation strikes some as inconsistent, including United Against Nuclear Iran President Mark Wallace.
I'll tell you, anyone that is interested in American national security, global security, preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon needs to take heed of the statements out of that government, including calling for the extermination of Israel. It's simply inconsistent if you believe in and are an important supporter of Israel to also be supporting that economy by doing business there.
We reached out to Ronald Stanton, and he declined our request to speak on camera or meet off the record. Transammonia's general counsel told us that no one else from Transammonia in America would be made available to us either, since Transammonia Inc. doesn't directly do business in Iran. They said, quote, "No one here is in a position to discuss the reasons why a foreign subsidiary engages in such transactions. Those decisions are made independently by the foreign subsidiary." Well, main American competitors of the company include Kirby Shipping, Southern Towing, Koch Industries, and CF Industries, all confirmed they do not do business in Iran directly or via foreign subsidiaries. Foreign competitors, though, a different story. From shipping logs, we know Swiss Singapore, Hong Kong's Transglobal, and Japan's Mitsui all ship ammonia from Iran. Swiss Singapore didn't return our calls. Transglobal says it does business through all Iran's ports, and Mitsui referred to us to an SEC filing which said, quote, "As a globally operating company, we do business in various countries, including Iran. Our activities in these states are insignificant to our entire business. However, we are aware our reputation is determined largely by others." Joining us now is the man in charge of the sanctions. He's visited 24 countries since June to get other countries on board. He's Stuart Levy, Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Secretary Levy, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. We appreciate it. And I know you just heard our piece, and I wanted to show you a viewer poll that we've conducted over the past couple of days. We asked our viewers whether they thought sanctions were a good way to stop a country from doing something. And the latest results we have right now are 74% of them said no, 26% said yes. You think the viewers are wrong, though, don't you?
Well, I think that, well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Erin. And I do think that the sanctions program that we've put in place with respect to Iran is having the effect that it was designed to have, namely to provide leverage for our diplomacy so that we can force Iran or compel Iran to make a different choice with respect to its nuclear program. What we've seen over the last few months is a cascade of measures, frankly, starting with the UN Security Council resolution, with EU sanctions, sanctions by other governments around the world, which have put a great deal more pressure on Iran than I think Iran anticipated. And added on to that is the trend, which I think one of the people that you talked to identified, which is the really dramatic development by the private sector around the world to pull out of business with Iran. That started with major financial services companies and banks refusing to do business with Iran and pulling back from prior business they had been doing with Iran. And that has led to a follow-on effect where other major companies are finding it too difficult and unappealing to do business with Iran, combined with the fear that they have of being involved in some of Iran's illicit activities. So we see big companies that previously had been willing to do business in Iran now saying that they won't,
and
partially for reputational reasons and partially for wanting to stay away from business with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, which is taking over a larger portion of Iran's economy.
Well, I would imagine, yeah. I mean, it's people don't like pieces like the one that we ran today. I mean, when you talk about a big company, Honeywell, I know had been under a lot of pressure. They had a sub in Britain that did business with Iran. They resisted the pressure, but we can confirm today that they are no longer taking new orders and winding down existing ones through that subsidiary. This issue that we tackled in our piece of foreign subsidiaries, do you think that moral persuasion is working? Legally, perhaps, everything is fine, but is moral persuasion working?
Well, I'd say there are a combination of factors, Erin, that are leading most of the private sector actors to pull out of business with Iran, and that includes the foreign subsidiaries of major U.S. firms. But as you indicated, legally they may be able to do it, but there's a combination of factors that are leading them not to do business in Iran. First is the most important one, just good corporate citizenship. They don't want to be involved in illicit activity. There is the reputational harm that they may suffer from the kind of publicity that they get from doing business with Iran. But again, I think also their inability even to do business in Iran if they want to is becoming so difficult. They can't get financial services. You may want to do import-export trade with Iran, but if no bank will write a letter of credit for you, it's hard to do it.
What about from you in particular on banks? You find Lloyd's, Barclays, Credit Suisse, all up to $1 billion in total for deals that they've been doing with Iran. Are we going to see more big fines coming out of you for companies doing business there?
Well, as you indicate, we have imposed substantial fines on companies that have violated our sanctions, and we take that very seriously. When we do have indications of sanctions violations, we do take it seriously and enforce very aggressively, and the companies that you name are good examples of that. But ideally, we would need to have those high-profile enforcement actions because financial institutions and others would just choose not to do the business and not to violate our sanctions. And frankly, that is the trend we are seeing. We are seeing a very dramatic pullback just in the last few months. Even financial institutions that had previously been willing to do business with those banks that we had identified in Iran for facilitating their nuclear program, their missile program, and terrorism, even those banks have now decided that they're not going to do that business, largely because of new U.S. sanctions passed by the Congress in July.
Okay. Well, Undersecretary Levy, thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again soon. I wish we had more time. Your boss, unfortunately, is giving us a little bit of a hard rap since he's going to be speaking at his press conference in a few moments. Thanks again for being with us.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, and as for GE, the parent of this network, spokesperson Gary Sheffer confirmed to us that GE does no business in Iran and hasn't for several years. The exception is the sale of healthcare equipment under a humanitarian program and a license from the U.S. government. We do not profit from these sales. An update now on a story we're first told you about on street signs last week. New York-based Transammonia, owned by one of the biggest philanthropists in America, a man who fled the Nazi regime as a boy, has been doing business with Iran until now. In our week-long series, Forbidden Zone, we found that a subsidiary of Transammonia, the world's largest private shipper of ammonia, was trading with Iran. Ammonia is used in crop production, household products, and 95% of the roadside bombs in Afghanistan. Now, Transammonia and its subsidiaries are owned by Ronald Stanton, who gave $100 million to the Jewish Yeshiva University in 2006. Biggest donation ever to Jewish education in this country. Doing business with Iran is illegal for American companies without a license. Now, Stanton's Transammonia did not have one. Instead, its Swiss subsidiary, Transammonia AG, transacted business. The company notes this is legal, in part because the sub didn't send money from Iran back to the United States. Late yesterday, in the wake of our report, Transammonia issued a press release notifying officials in Washington it is ending all ties with Iran. And through Transammonia's lawyer, Stanton has declined our request to speak.